So we have the upcoming mid-season patch notes. With all of the patches in Smite, of course, there is not only the regular big patch coming up, but there is also the bonus balance. So the bonus balance is going to be going live on June 30th compared to the regular mid-season patch, which is going to go live on June 14th. Got a bunch of skins coming in your bonus balance. Who cares about skins? We don't care. As far as the bonus balance goes, bonus balance is mostly nerfs. So we've got a nerf to Aphrodite coming out. They're going to be increasing the cooldown on her ultimate from 90 to 70 seconds to 90 seconds at all ranks. So that's going to be a 20% increase on that cooldown for Aphrodite at max rank. This is a wonderful start to continuing the nerfs on Aphrodite. I still think she's going to be very strong after this nerf, but luckily this combined with some other stuff should hopefully be enough for Aphrodite to not be a mandatory ban anymore. Cthulhu getting a bit of a love tap as well. They are increasing the cooldown on his ultimate from 100 seconds to 120 seconds. So a 20-second increase on the cooldown of his ultimate, and they're also removing the damage mitigations during the intro of his ulti as well, which is a nice start. And the ability 3 in his ultimate, they're reducing the ally healing from 10 to 14% of max health to 8 to 12% of max health. This is still not going to be a big enough nerf to make him not wrecking your games. Cthulhu is still going to be one of the best, if not the best, Guardian in Smite after these nerfs, but at least it's a start to something, so that's nice. Heim is also going to be getting a nerf here in the bonus balance, decreasing the knockback strength from 350 to 300 on his horn, and more importantly, Bifrost increasing the base time from 0.5 seconds to 0.8 seconds. This is the baseline time that it takes Heim to teleport. This is the baseline time that it takes Heim to teleport using his 3 in any situation. So this means that now he can't do that quite instant teleport. So you actually have an opportunity maybe to get some damage on him before he disappears away with those really, really close Bifrosts. That's a significant nerf to Heim. That's actually a very nice nerf. Hell also getting a nerf because we're nerfing the healers. They are nerfing her 1, decreasing the damage from 70 to 270 to 60 to 260. This is on both the light and dark stance of this ability, and they're also decreasing the light stance scaling from 30 to 25%. So trying to take some of the burst edge off of Hell, particularly in the early game, and also a little healing nerf just for good measure. Hell and Aphro will still be good with these changes, but the thing is you're going to see a lot of hunter changes later, and a lot of hunters are probably going to be making their way into the mid lane now. Jorm also going to get a small nerf. They're decreasing his basic attack damage from 11.2 to 9.6. This nerf is actually basically just because they changed how Warrior's Blessing works. Warrior's Blessing used to take 5 flat damage. Used to take flat damage off of any damage done to you, which meant it nerfed Jorm's auto attacks by every single auto attack. And because they changed Warrior's Blessing over in solo lane, they basically have to change the way that Jorm's auto attacks work. Still, on the whole, Jorm's auto attacks are doing more damage per auto than they were beforehand to the enemies in the solo lane. But it's kind of just meeting the middle ground there so that he doesn't have absurd auto attack damage over in the solo lane. For Nike, they are decreasing the damage on her barrier formation from 85 to 305 to 70 to 310, taking away some of that lower end damage, a little bit from the high end as well, but more impactful there on the lower end. This combined with some changes that we're going to see later on really are going to take a swipe at Nike and nerf her like crazy, which is just wonderful. They're also going to be decreasing the slow duration on her ultimate from 6 seconds at all ranks to 4 to 6 seconds on that slow duration. So that way in the early game, you're not getting slowed for 6 seconds, but in the late game, you are still going to be getting slowed for the same amount of time. Man, my throat hurts really bad right now. I need a lozenger. My God. Sobek, they're decreasing the protections that he gains from lurking in the waters from 30% to 20%, just trying to make him a little bit squishier. No significant balance change there for Sobek. And Yamoja, finally, nerfing the abilities that are so busted on her. They are decreasing the shield on Mending Waters from 40 to 160 to 30 to 130. So a very nice nerf there on the shield that she provides for her team. And Riptide, decreasing the movement speed from 20 to 40 to 10 to 30. So she'll have less getaway ability with that Riptide. So very nice changes overall. These are all the bonus balance changes. So these goes live in just a few days. These will all be live on June 30th. That's not the big balance, though. That's not the big one at all. The big one is coming up. Where's the big one? Big one is over here. Yes, it is. In my throat, dude. What is happening? Ow. Okay. Just dying slowly. So for the actual mid-season patch, we've got so much stuff. This is one of the bigger mid-season patches of all time, actually. So the most notable thing skin-wise is that there is the Avatar crossover. So if you've ever seen Avatar or Legend of Korra, they've got the crossover going on. And all of these skins will be going live in the next patch. The skins are the battle pass. So it'll be 750 gems for this battle pass. I know a lot of people are very excited for it. And there's a bunch of other skins as well that are chests and whatnot. Ares is notable. Ares got a remodel. So this is the new card art for his remodel. They basically gave Ares like an actual shape. So he looks like a human being instead of kind of like an Ares blob. So he's been working out and he has like, legs and arms and stuff. And he's not just one giant torso. So good for Ares on officially being more than just a torso. He hit the gym. Getting down. This is all battle pass stuff. Avatar stuff. There is going to be, they're changing a little bit of the way how punishment works, where basically if you're reporting people for no reason, you can get punished for that. Like if you're just like reporting a streamer after every game because you don't like them, you can get banned for that, for basically putting false reports into the system. So make sure that you actually are reporting people for valid reasons and not because you just don't like them. That will be now a bannable offense if you keep doing that over and over and over again and spamming their system. No big deals here. These are all various UI and bug fixes. And then we start to get into the actual stuff. So we've got the mid-season ranked reset. So as of last time, the variance is going to be soft reset. And if you're diamond, for players that are diamond and above, If not, you've got no reset. You're all Gucci. And they're also going to be resetting the God leaderboards and the leaderboard frames. Those have actually not been reset at all this year. So that'll be the first time those are getting reset. So you've got to grind back up your diamond and your mastery, God borders, all that stuff. For Jousting Duel, there's a couple of small changes. This mid-season patch was mostly focused on Conquest. But as far as Duel/Joust go, they removed the protection scaling on fire minions, and they decreased the max health scaling on the archers and the brutes, just to make them a little bit squishier. Now into the big heaping pile of changes. That is the mid-season Conquest changes. Very exciting. Huge changes to the game. I'd argue that this mid-season patch will probably have a bigger impact on the meta than the actual Season 7 patch did. And so we're just going to get right into it. The most exciting thing from this entire mid-season patch is that we did confirm that there will be a new map for Smite in Season 8. We haven't had a new map for Smite since, gosh, I want to say like Season 5. So this will be, it's been like 3 years or something since we've gotten a new map. And so we will be getting a new map with Season 8 that has been confirmed, which is pretty awesome. And that's very, very exciting that we're going to be getting a new map in Season 8. I think everybody's really pumped about that. And so that's just a fun little tidbit, but also a very exciting tidbit. The Jungle Shrine is getting a big fat buff. It only is going to require 1 auto attack instead of 3 in order to claim the entire gold bounty. Not only that, though, they're increasing the gold stack from 5 to 10. So they're basically doubling the amount of money that the Gold Shrine gives, and it only gives it with 1 auto attack. So you can just do it kind of quickly while you're walking by, hit it 1 time, boom, get that gold. But you're going to get some serious cash monies from this Jungle Shrine now. So make sure you're actually doing it when it gets those stacks going. Lane minions are receiving kind of a little bit of a brain overhaul, kind of the way that they've been doing with all the minions in Smite, from Tusky to Nuwa to whatever. When minions are fighting other minions, they will target the closest minion rather than the first target they see. This is recalculated after every attack. This is basically to make the minion waves trade more evenly, so that big fat minion waves don't like randomly pop up in the middle of nowhere, because they just like happen to path weirdly to lane. They're also trying to make the minions path more evenly to lane. They're trying to reduce the jostling that they do, which can result in the minions like grouping up extra and being closer, and sometimes even a melee and an archer minion could like swap positions. Just trying to make the minions walk into lane more consistently for a more consistent laning experience. Over in the mid lane, to all my mid laners, you knew this was coming one day. The 2 small harpies have been changed to a single elder harpy. Basically, mid laners are getting way too much farm right now, so they reduce the amount of farm that you can acquire as a mid laner by taking away your 2 easy small harpies and giving you 1 single elder harpy. So if you actually want to do it, it's going to take you more time and also probably do more damage to you. This combined with the other jungle changes means that mid laners won't be able to free farm the jungle nearly as much as they're doing right now. You're going to have to basically farm with your jungler. Gold Fury has reduced the hitbox size by 25% and also adjusted AI for smoother pathing towards players. This is important because the Gold Fury is going to be a part of a new type of camp that they call aggressive camps, which we're going to be talking about a lot. But if you get within the Gold Fury range, the Gold Fury will come out and attack you. So if you're within the range of the Gold Fury, it will literally just start attacking you. You don't have to attack it for it to do this. It is called an aggressive camp. Speaking of aggressive camps, we're going to be talking about them. These monster camps will all charge forward and attack you if you get within range of their proximity circle. Manticores, chimeras, all types of harpies, gold, fury, and the fire giant. If you get in the range of any of those, if you're within their little circle, they will start attacking you right off the bat. There's no waiting. They're already getting aggressive. Other camps will still be labeled defensive. So the oracles will not attack you right away. The pyromancer will not. The centaurs and the satyrs will not. So those 4 camps will remain the same, just like they work right now in terms of not necessarily entirely because they will have some changes, but they won't be aggressive on you. All the other camps will literally just start attacking you as if the jungle was alive, which is really cool. So every single camp in the game has gotten a special effect / attack. Nobody in the game is the same anymore in terms of what they do. So step 1, the Alpha Harpy. This is the Harpy in the duo lane. The Harpy now has a ability. When it uses its ability, it applies a 15% attack speed debuff. This can stack up to 2 times and last for 6 seconds. So as if the Alpha Harpy wasn't hard enough to clear before, it will now put a up to 30% attack speed debuff on you to make it even harder to clear. And also means if you're doing the Alpha Harpy and you come get ganked by the enemy hunter, now you've got slower attack speed and you're gonna get whacked. I'm not gonna get into the balance on the base and scaling on any of these mobs. Basically, it's a whole bunch of text. The general idea of this is that they are going to be giving more XP for the jungle, but the jungle camps in general are going to be harder to kill. This is just a general theme that they wanted going on, is that jungle camps will be harder to burn down by yourself and harder to clear overall, but give more XP when you do clear them. That's what basically all of this is saying on all of the camps. The Elder Harpy. This is the one, these are going to be following the new aggressive behavior, and the Elder Harpies, you're going to see get all of these changes. These are not going to have anything super special with them, but these will all have these various HP changes. You can see increased max health, increased power, blah, 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 blah. Shifting around of these numbers honestly don't really mean anything until you get in game and you get to like actually play against it and check it. So that's not super relevant. But these changes are relevant. The Manticore. So this is the red buff. The red buff now has a new ability. When the red buff drops below 45% health, it will go berserk and have an increased attack speed, causing players to take more damage over time. So when you're trying to do the red buff, it'll get jacked towards the end. It'll get jacked towards the end of you doing it, which means that you're actually probably going to want to save abilities towards the end of doing red buff and not at the start of red buff, so that way you can burn through it. It is a significant attack speed increase, and if you're in the early games as a mage, it is genuinely going to make the red buff harder to do by yourself, and maybe even for some characters, not possible at the start of the game. The purple buff has a crazy, by far the craziest of all the changes. It has a new ability called Void Sludge. Chimera fires a projectile attack at its target, applying a debuff to the first target it aggroes. Decreases protections by 20%. But with this debuff applied, minions will prioritize you less even if you deal damage to an enemy god. And it lasts for 20 seconds. So first of all, this is a 20% protection debuff for 20 seconds, which is a huge debuff. So your guardian will never, ever start the purple buff because that is horrific. So your hunter has to tank the purple buff now. But if your hunter tanks it, if your hunter goes and attacks the enemy gods, they won't aggro the minions, so the minions won't start to body block them in their autos when they do it. So this has very interesting implications for the dual lane in going for fights instead of clearing the wave. So this one will have by far the most interesting interactions with it. By far. All right, the Centaur. Once again, you can see all of these changes to all this stuff. Bada bing, bada boom. Who cares? But we do care about this. The speed buff will now have a spear thrust. He winds up a powerful thrust, damaging all enemies in a line. This deals 3 times its basic attack damage to enemies within range. So basically, you have to kite the speed buff and do circles around the speed buff. If you're not doing it, you're going to get hit by a line ability. Almost think kind of like how Fire Giant does a line ability that you have to keep moving while you're doing the Fire Giant. Same kind of concept, but with the Centaur, the most straightforward of all the abilities. But you can't just stand still and take the speed buff because it'll give you a nice fat slap. The blue buff. Don't forget about the blue buff. It also has stuff. Literally like every camp in the game is getting changes like this. The blue buff will now summon 4 Spirit Satyrs, which will be summoned to help the Satyr shortly after he enters combat. They've got very low HP, but they have high damage when they're all combined, meaning you're supposed to basically save AoE autos for this camp after they're summoned, and if you don't have good AoEs, it's going to make you harder to clear the camp because you're going to have to use an auto attack to clear it all, and that's going to be a disaster. So this is going to basically summon a bunch of little helpful minions. There is no longer the minis on this camp as well, so it's just the big blue buff. The amount of XP that it's going to give is going to be the same relatively. They just buffed up the amount of XP that it gives. But it will summon the 4 little guys. It will summon the 4 little guys, which is very interesting. The Pyromancer. Don't forget about the Pyromancer. He's also getting a new ability, Infernal Ritual. Shortly after being attacked, the Pyromancer enters into a 3-second channeled spell. So it takes him 3 seconds to channel it. You can interrupt him. You can interrupt this channel with either a stun, a silence, a knockup, a mesmerize, or a fear. So you can go ahead and interrupt him out of this. But if you don't, it's an AoE debuff that causes all nearby gods to take 15% increased damage from all sources, and it lasts 10 seconds. All sources. That means if you're trying to do the Pyromancer and an enemy god comes over to you, you're going to take 15% increased damage from the enemy god. This is a big fat, you know, no sneaking the Pyromancer. This is a big fat, like, don't stand around him. Very, very big debuff for sitting around the Fire Giant. Not to mention the Fire Giant will literally attack you with magma pools if you get in range of him as well. The Oracles get an ability. Shortly after being attacked, the Oracles enter a 3-second duration, just like the Pyromancer. If they are successful with it, once again, you can interrupt them, just like you can interrupt the Pyromancer with stuns, silence, knockup, mesmerizes, or fears. But if you don't interrupt it, the Oracles will take 40% reduced damage for 5 seconds. They're already so tanky. 40% reduced damage. You basically just won't be able to kill them during this time frame. So you have to either interrupt them or bring over more than one person, so you're not just soloing the Oracles. The jungle is real tired of being farmed into oblivion, and it is fighting back here in the mid-season patch, and I freaking love every second of this patch, dude. It's the best patch in recent memory, and I'm gonna get back into it now. I just had to throw that in there. This literally makes me giddy like a itty bitty Smite child. The Fire Giant, like I said, the Fire Giant, if you enter his range, he will launch a magma pool at you. This does have a 30-second cooldown though. So if you run into the range, it summons a magma pool, you run out, you run back in, it won't just magma pool, magma pool, magma pool, magma pool. It does have a 30-second cooldown. 30-second cooldown also on the blue buff. After the blue buff summon satyrs, there's also a 30-second cooldown. You can't just like walk over and infinitely summon spirit minions and run them through the jungle for funsies. It will have a 30-second cooldown as well. I forgot to mention that. Because I know somebody already was out there like, how many spirit minions can I get summoned onto this map before the whole server crashes? Can't do that. The Gold Fury. Also, every single Gold Fury is getting its own special thing. All right, so the Gold Fury will channel a spell on a single target that applies a debuff that stacks every 0.5 seconds. The debuff lasts for 5 seconds. This stacks up to 6 times, damaging and refreshing on each tick. So the regular Gold Fury will do a 5% slow per stack and plus 20% gold bounty when killed. So if you're fighting the regular Gold Fury, you're trying to do it, and then you get killed, well, they could get a lot of bonus gold. That's up to 120 bonus gold for killing you if you were trying to do that. On the Oni Fury, you take 5% increased damage from all sources per stack. That's right, because it stacks up to 6 times. That means that's up to 30% increased damage taken from all sources. 30%. Or Primal Fury, which is 5% reduced damage per stack, which is once again up to 30% reduced damage dealt per stack. Huge gameplay implications of this. Doing objectives in Smite is going to be very dangerous again. Soloing objectives is going to be much harder and much more dangerous. Very much turning these back into team fight objectives, trying to make people not able to solo them so early and so often anymore. Really increasing the threat level of getting caught out if you go try to do that stuff. Wonderful changes to the Gold Fury. Okay, so that's all the changes to the map, which is pretty much changing everything in the game, which is awesome. Next up, this mid-season patch is going to have basically the physical penetration patch equivalent to what they had for Magical Pen. Remember, at the start of the season, they completely reworked how Magical Pen worked. They're doing the same thing for Physical Pen, spreading out penetration onto a bunch of different items, so that way it can vary up the builds a little bit, and you're not forced into buying Executioner every game for the rest of your life. Huge gameplay implications to this as well. So, Physical Pen has a 40% cap, just like regular. Titan's Bane, you're going to recognize this item. Increase the gold cost from 23 to 25.50. Increase the power from 30 to 40. Added 20% physical pen. Your first ability cast gains 20% physical penetration. This can occur once every 10 seconds. Titan's Bane is also known now as Obsidian Shard. They literally just made it physical Obsidian Shard. So you have that option for big, fat, bursty physical damage dealers if you want to. Gods like maybe Thanatos might want to consider this, so you get a big, fat, beefy scythe off, even on like a tanky target. Executioner probably getting the hardest slap, actually, of the physical items. Well, that's not true because of the shield, but decreasing costs from 2350 to 2200, so reducing the cost a little bit. Increasing the power by 5 from 30 to 35. And decrease the passive shred from 12% per stack to 7% per stack. So instead of this item giving 36% pen, it will now only give 21% pen on that shred. So this item getting nerfed pretty significantly. It's not that it's a garbage item, like a little bit more power, a little bit reduced cost. It's not that it's a garbage item. It's that with all the other item changes, I don't currently see a real reason to be picking this up over some of the other items in the game. Mainly the one that we're about to get to talk about, which is Lantos Bow, which got, I think, one of the most fun changes in all of the patch. Atalanta's Bow added 20% pen right off the bat. So keep in mind, Atalanta's Bow gives power, attack speed, and now it's going to give pen. They removed the movement speed and gave it pen instead, but it has a new passive. If you receive a kill or assist on an enemy god, you gain Atalanta's agility for 10 seconds. This effect increases your attack speed by 20%. First of all, that's amazing. And decreases the movement penalty for attacking, backpedaling, and strafing by 50%. Yes, you heard it right, folks. This is what we call 50% Fatalis. So it's not quite as good as original Fatalis, but this is basically 50% Fatalis, and it lasts for 10 seconds, 100% worth. You get the increased attack speed. You've got all the other stats, same price. So strafing goes from 80 to 90, backpedaling from 60 to 80, melee basic attacking from a 65% penalty to 82.5. Well, you know what I'm saying, from 65%. Yeah, they got to reverse their number. So 35% reduction. Now it's only going to reduce you by 17.5. You see what I'm doing here? And range basic attacks from 50 to 75. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's literally 50% Fatalis, which is just awesome. I expect to see this item on people all across the board. Honest to God, I think that this might even replace Hastened Katana for a lot of the melee damage dealers that were picking it up. I think that if you're like a Bakasura, you build a Golden Blade and an Atalanta's Bow, like, yeah, you don't get the full, hastened effect, but 50% hastened effect plus everything else that you're getting from this item, like 20% pen, is probably gonna make it just fine and dandy. So expect to see this on hunters and assassins, auto attack assassins alike. Rage, basically getting a little tiny change, just increasing its gold cost by 100. There's going to be a lot more crit in the game. I hope that you like crit. I do like crit, so fine by me, but there's going to be a lot more crit in the game. So they're increasing the gold cost of Rage by 100. It'll still be a wonderful item in all your builds. Silver Branch Bow. They are trying really, really hard to make Silver Branch Bow a viable item, and I think they just might have done it, chat. First of all, they're giving it 10 physical penetration instead of 10 flat pen. So adding the percent pen, taking away the flat pen, and increasing the physical power gained from 1.5 to 2 per stack. So this is going to require some testing, obviously, but I'm thinking, the Apollos, Itsanamis, Artemises, Ramas of the world, our gods that have built-in attack speed. You factor this item in with items like Atalanta's Bow, which is going to give you already good attack speed base, plus the extra attack speed on a kill. You pop your stem, you've got this going. I think there's a lot of potential here for situational Silver Branch Bow builds. I think there's going to be multiple gods that can easily make Silver Branch Bow a well over 100 power damage item. Well over 100 physical power. So we're going to have to see how this goes down and obviously require testing, but keep it in mind. Keep it in mind. They're redoing the Shrieking tree a little bit, reducing the attack speed from 10 to 7 on the 8-pointed one. Who cares? Not a big deal. But they are adding an entirely new one to the game. It is going to be 2,500 gold. This is going to be up in that tree with all the Wind Demon and Poison Star and whatnot. It's going to give 20 physical power. It is going to give 10% attack speed, 20% crit, and the passive is going to be enemies hit by your critical strikes have 40% reduced healing and regeneration for 8 seconds. So they're putting a crit anti-heal item in the game. So when you were building crit and you were like, man, I hate building brawlers. That doesn't make any sense on my hunter. I guess I have to build Toxic Blade, but it doesn't really go with my build. Congratulations. Now you have a crit anti-heal item. The stats on it suck. This item is strictly only for anti-heal to synergize with your crit build, right? You've got a Deathbringer Rage. You've got 70% crit chance. You're like, well, I would have wanted to buy a third crit item, but I can't now. Well, congratulations. Now you get the anti-heal with your crit, so you can have the 90% crit, basically applying it on every single auto attack. Poison Star, they're shifting around the stars a little bit, taking away a little bit of attack speed, so it's only 10% instead of 15, and increasing the physical power from 30 to 35. They basically want each of these stars to have their own thing. So Poison Star's thing is it gives the most power. Shadow Steel's thing is that it gives the most crit chance, and Wind Demon's thing is that it gives the most attack speed. So they're decreasing its crit chance from 20 to 15, but they're decreasing the power from 30 to 25, and they're changing its passive. The passive now provides 10% physical pen in addition to the attack speed and movement speed that it gives you. Wind Demon, Lantos Bow, Silver Branch Bow, attack speeds, movement speeds, built-in penetrations. There's a lot of potential synergy going on here between these items. Soul Leader getting itself a little change, decreasing the cost, so it's only going to be 2,100, 200 gold cheaper. Decreasing the power from 40 to 30, so it gives 10 less power overall. Removing the 200 mana from it. They're giving it 10% physical pen, and this Soul Leader will now provide 5% ability lifesteal even before the stacks are completed and the item involves. Soul Leader's always been a weird item. I'm not sure how certain I am that this is going to be good. So if you want to look at what it looks like now, the Evolved Soul Eater will go from 60 total power to 40. It doesn't have the 200 mana. It's got 10% physical pen, and then the increased ability lifesteal from 15 to 20%. So it's interesting. It's being a little bit more pushed into its one job, which is ability lifesteal. So it gives a little bit more in that ability lifesteal department than it used to. It gives you a little bit of pen, but less power. It might be worth testing around with, but I still don't see it being super good. With the power reduction, like, maybe some gods, like literally, maybe Arthur just starts picking this up because of the Gladiator Shield change. We'll see. Soul Leader's always a really hard item to be 100% certain on until you actually get to practice with it, just because it is so unique. Heartseeker getting a kind of buff, decreasing the gold cost by 200 once again, but they're removing the 10 flat pen and increasing it by giving it 10 percentage pen, removing lots of various flat pens from the game. So it's kind of a buff. It's kind of a buff. It's going to be technically a nerf against squishy items. So for the early game Thanatos players that were buying this to kill the squishies, it'll actually do a little bit less damage because you lose the flat pen. So it's going to be less detrimental to the squishy characters, but it will be more detrimental to the tanks in the game. So it's a little bit of one and another. Probably on the whole, I'd give it like a 5%, in the buff category. But for the squishy players out there in the world, this is actually a nerf for it hitting you. Fail Not. Only giving it 10% pen. That's what they're doing. Nothing crazy. Just putting 10% good old physical penetration on it. This is actually a big deal, though, for ability-based hunters. One, physical percent penetration is good for ability-based hunters because obviously your abilities and how it interacts with that. But two, there's some ability-based hunters getting some very nice buffs in this patch that we'll talk about later on. So I expect to see a lot of hunters, both ability-based and auto-attack crit-based hunters, all got huge buffs. Overall, this patch is actually detrimental to tanks. Now, mages have access to easy percent pen. Now, hunters and and like assassins have super easy access to percent pen. So expect us to be in a pretty heavy, damagey, bursty meta after the mid-season patch, and expect to see a lot of the ultra tank builds kind of go by the wayside. Masamune is getting removed from the game. Kind of. Basically, what's happening here is Masamune has basically been taken out of the blade tree, and they're pretty much throwing it into the hammer tree. So it's basically going to be a hammer item. The reason why they're doing this is because hunters can't buy the sword items, and they're putting a new sword item in the game that they obviously could not let hunters buy. So let's talk about that new item that they very specifically had to move Masamune out so they could put a new item in so that hunters couldn't buy it. And that's going to be Serrated Edge. Serrated Edge might be the best item actually in Smite. It is 2,400 gold, is a part of that sword tree. It gives you 40 physical power, 10% lifesteal, 10% movement speed, 20% physical pen, and to top it all off, if all three of your non-ultimate abilities are on cooldown, if your 1, your 2, and your 3 are on cooldown, you gain 40 basic attack power and 10% lifesteal. I'm talking Bakas, I'm talking Kalis, I'm talking Arachnes. Buy this item every single game for the rest of your life. The amount of auto attack damage that this item is going to give, the amount of lifesteal, the amount of craziness that it's going to give. There's also implications for other characters like warriors. I'm talking like Vamana. I'm talking Erlang. There is implications. To keep in mind, this is not 80 physical power. This is not 80 physical power. This is 40 physical power and 40 basic attack power. So that bonus damage that you get from the passive will not make your abilities do more damage. It will only make your auto attacks do more damage, which is why this is really leaning into auto attack assassins and warriors. But on the whole, gotta be the best item that they're putting in the game this patch. Just so this item, I almost guarantee probably a 90% chance that this item either gets nerfed stat wise before it makes it to live client, or has a significant increase to its gold cost, maybe moved up to like 2,700 before it makes it to live client. So onward to the warrior items. Everybody wave goodbye. Before we get into it, everybody wave goodbye. Gladiator Shield and Berserker Shield are no more. No more tier 2 Berserker Shield, Gladiator Shield. These items are being reworked. They're taking the sustain out of the solo lane. So you won't be able to just Arthur roll your face across the keyboard without any sort of skill whatsoever. They will be turning Gladiator Shield and Berserker Shield into tier 3 items. Those changes, Gladiator Shield is now going to build off a Tower Shield. For 2,500 gold, it will give you 25 physical power, 200 health, 40 physical protections, 10% CDR, and any enemy god who is under 50% takes bonus damage from your abilities equal to 15 plus 2 per level bonus physical damage. Triggers only once per enemy per ability. It's okay. I mean, let's see. At max level, if you had, so that would be level 20, that would be 15 plus 2 per level. So 2 times 20 is going to be 40. So 55 damage potential per ability bonus per target. Only if they're under that 50% health. You're using a bunch of abilities. It's like okay, but I don't think it's that great. One of those items we'll have to test, but right off the bat, it seems pretty expensive for the stats that it gives. Berserker Shield, on the other hand, I do think is interesting. 2,500 gold, 40 physical power, 30 physical protections, 20% attack speed, and 10% physical pen. Right off the bat, I think this has better stats. You get attack speed, you get power, you get pen, you get protections. Passive, if you drop below 40% HP, you become Berserk, like the name would suggest, providing 20 more physical power and 20% attack speed. It lasts for 5 seconds and it refreshes on if healed and then re-damaged. I think this is by far the better of the two shields, and this has two very interesting implications. One of which is gods like Osiris over in the solo lane, those auto-attacking warriors. But two, I think this is a fascinating potential item for hunters. I think with the power, a little bit of physical protection, I think this will be a very interesting item to see if hunters end up picking this up, especially if you combine that 40% attack speed with that silver branch bow we were talking about earlier. Maybe it gives you a bunch more power. There's very interesting hunter implications for this build as well, not just your auto-attacking warriors like Osiris. So keep in mind that. The sledge. First of all, this is the best named item in all the Smite. I don't care what you say. You can't convince me otherwise. The sledge is such a brilliant name for an item. It's literally just a sledgehammer. I mean, what more do you want? This is basically old Masamune. They moved it over to the hammer tree, and it's pretty similar. It's actually probably a little bit better. It gives 40 physical power, 300 health, 150 mana, 20% CCR, all of this for the low price of 2,300 gold. And for each enemy within 55 units, you gain 10 magical physical protections up to 3 times. So, for 2,300 gold, this item can potentially give 40 physical power, 300 health, 150 mana, 20% CCR, and 30 magical and 50 protections when you're in a skirmish. It's actually a pretty decent item. I wouldn't sleep on this. It kind of gives me a little bit of like old Blackthorn Hammer vibes. It's a little bit like more aggressive Blackthorn Hammer. So I would keep this one in mind for your hybrid builds, particularly with all of these changes to penetration. I think that full tank builds are out. For anybody that was building strictly tank, I think it's out, whether you're support, whether you're solo laner. I think the 100% right down the tank tree path is dead with the easy access to magical and percent pen. So I think that items like this, like the sledge, where you get a little bit of tankiness and a little bit of damage, I think that that's going to be the path that you want to go down on these characters. So keep this item in mind when you're doing that. Assassin's Blessing is getting a change. They're buffing the stats on it from 50 HP to 100 HP. It is also going to give 7 physical and magical power. They are increasing the healing that you get from jungle monsters when you slay them from 7% to 8%. But they're decreasing the bonus damage done to jungle monsters from 40% to 30%. This is a part of the process once again. They are trying to make the jungle camps more scary. They're trying to make it more exciting. So Assassin's Blessing will make you do less damage to the jungle, which means you will clear them less fast. Now, for my jungle mains out there, don't you worry your pretty little heads. You're gonna be okay. On the whole, their intention is to increase the amount of XP that junglers are getting. So you should be getting more XP faster. That's because the jungle camps themselves are giving more experience. So you should actually be leveling faster in the jungle, even though you're clearing the camps slower. All right? You're going to be okay, junglers. You're going to be okay. Warlock Staff getting a slight change, increasing the base power from 65 to 85. My Baba Yaga mains out there, my Cuckoo boys, congratulations. But they're decreasing the power that you get from its scaling. On the whole, it's a buff on both ends. You get 20 more power when you first buy Warlock Stash. You get 5 more power at the very end when you've got it completely stacked. Basically just trying to put it back into the meta a little bit. Book of Thoth, also trying to get back into the meta a little bit, reducing the cost from 2,650 to 2,500. if you play mid lane, if you play mages, you know that you're not stacking on anybody except Baba Yaga right now. And that's because it's just too expensive to get stacking items online to the point where they're relevant. So they're trying to help out and make those stacking items more relevant a little bit earlier on in the game so that they're more viable. Tyrannical Plate Helm, getting a very interesting change. Tyrannical Plate Helm is an item that a lot of people forget is actually in Smite. For those that don't know, Tyrannical Plate Helm was an item that was going to come into Smite at the start of the season. People tested it in PTS, and it was probably one of the most busted items ever put into the game. So they nerfed it into the absolute floor before they released it into the game. And then nobody bought it because they released it into the floor. They nerfed it into the floor for good reason, because it was an absolutely terrifying item. But they are going to buff it back up into a spot where people will start to pick it up again, increasing the magical power from 70 to 85, and increasing the minion health from 10 to 20%. Basically, Tyrannical Plate Helm gives you extra strong minions in lane, which is why it was so scary, because it makes your minions stronger. Minions being stronger is just a scary thing at all stages of the game. So it'll be interesting to see where this starts to get picked up. 20% increased minion health, I actually do think is viable to get picked up, which means that somebody on your team is probably going to be in charge of picking up this item every game, whether that's your solo lane guardian or your support guardian. Probably not going to be your mage that ends up getting this item, but probably wherever your guardian ends up being run is probably going to be forced to buy this item in order to give you the extra strong minions for shoving down the lane for Phoenix fights. Maybe a healer ends up picking this up. Say you've got Hell. She gives the minions more HP. Well, she can heal the minions, so now it's easier for her to heal the minions up. You might see that happen. But then again, healers kind of did get nerfed overall. Mail of Renewal. They are reducing the time it takes to heal. So Mail of Renewal right now takes 5 seconds to fully take effect and heal you all the way up. Now it takes 3 seconds. Just trying to buff up Mail of Renewal a little bit. Probably not huge gameplay implications for Mail of Renewal. We'll have to see. Stone of Gaia getting a very interesting change. I think Stone of Gaia is a pretty good item right now, particularly on gods like Cthulhu, who can really abuse that % regeneration. And they're going to increase the healing per second from 0.3% of your max health to 0.5%. So almost doubling that amount. And healing per second, % of your max HP is a really good thing. That's a really good stat. So that's a wonderful pickup there for tanks. It's also relevant because of all the pen coming into the game. It means that building more HP is also going to be a little bit better. You might not want to lean so hard into the actual protections. You might want to lean more into HP, force them into building Kins and Soul Reaver. So items like Stone of Gaia, I have a feeling we'll see an increased pickup rate since they put so much more physical penetration into the game. Hide of the Nemean Lion. I don't really understand what's happening with this item. They're removing the Reflect from Hide of the Nemean Lion, which I don't mind. Because reducing Reflect in the game is a good thing, in my opinion. I think Reflect is not something that should be in the game, in a game where you have to specifically aim all of your attacks. I feel like aiming your attack and then being punished for it is a bad thing. They're giving Nemean a new passive, which is every 15 seconds, this item generates a block stack for the owner of 1 stack of block. So I'm not saying it's the most garbage item in Smite, but I'm saying it's a really not good item. The thing about block stacks, though, is that block stacks are really good. Block stacks are really good. 1 block stack is not really good by itself. But this item could be so strong so quickly, even if they just do something as simple as this item now has 2 block stacks. 2 block stacks, and this item goes from being really not good at all to like very good. So that's kind of the fine line that you're playing with block stacks. And one of the reasons why you're in this such a fine line with block stacks is because of how it combines with other gods and items. You give 2 block stacks on this item, and then all of a sudden you build it on Athena and you have 5 block stacks. That's really scary, really fast. You throw it on Bellona, who can generate block stacks on her 1, and now she can generate on Hide the Nemean Lion, and all of a sudden, this is a really busted item. So it's a really hard item to balance, in my opinion. Maybe they can do something like generate a stack every 20 seconds and it can stack twice, so that way it's not like proccing again in a team fight. So that way it kind of makes it not so broken on the other gods, you know, outside of that one thing. You throw a shell on top of it, you've got 2 more block stacks. Block stacks are just very scary. They're just very scary. So it's just hard to, it's really, really hard to balance an item with block stacks, in my opinion. I just feel like once you start throwing shells together with Hide of the Nemean block stacks, once you have block stacks on gods, and all of a sudden it can snowball out of control really, really quickly. So keep an item on Hide of the Nemean Lion. Keep a really close eye on this item. Like really close. Speaking of items you should be keeping a really close eye on, Ring of Hecate just became one of the best items in Smite. 2,500 gold, 80 physical power, 30% attack speed, 20% lifesteal. First of all, nice freaking stats. Step 1, nice flippin' stats, dude. That's awesome. New passive. Each successful basic attack applies a hex to enemies and empowers you. Enemies receive a 5% decreased power per stack. You receive a 5% increased power and healing gained, stacking up to 3 times. Healing gain. So to clarify, not only will this make you lifesteal yourself more, but if you have a healer on your team, you'll also heal more from them. So say you're Oleron, you're stacking this up. Not only do you heal more from your auto attacks, you also heal more from your 3. You see what I'm saying? Now, if you're Al-Quwain, not only do you heal more from your auto attacks, you also heal more from your passive. You see what I'm saying on this interaction right here? This item is the reason why I've been talking about after the mid-season patch, assuming everything stays the same. Obviously, things get buffed and nerfed on PTS. If everything stays the same, I pretty much don't see a way for hunters and auto attack mages to not be the meta for mid and duo. I kind of see regular mages getting pushed aside a little bit, and your Soul, Oleron, Chronoses, and auto attack hunters and ability based hunters becoming the meta in both of those lanes. Buy Ring of Hecate on every single auto attack mage. Every single one. Everyone. This is a 30% power swing, by the way. This is basically Ichivol if Ichivol started taking roids. 30% power switch between you and your opponent. You gain 15, they lose 15. They're basically like, hey, you know Nemesis passive? What if we put that on an item? Okay? Disgustingly good. Also, Al-Quwain is going to be really good again because he's also getting buffed. Divine Ruin. They are reducing the penetration on Divine Ruin from 15 to 10, but increasing the power by 10. Similar on Spear of Desolation, they are reducing the flat pen by 5. Basically, they're nerfing our rushed Divine Helium McSteely Spear of Desolation build, where we got 30 flat pen super early. They're reducing that. Once again, these are also items that traditional mages bought, and they're nerfing them while buffing traditional auto attack mages. So I feel like auto attack mages are going to be very good. Spear of the Magus is getting a complete rework. You know it would. Spear of the Magus, I'm sure, has been bought 6 times all year long, ever since they changed it. So they're changing it once again. I am going to read this to you, and don't freak out at first because I understood it wrong at first. You might understand it wrong first as well. 2450 gold, 110 magical power. Nice. 10 flat pen. Okay. New passive. Any god you damage becomes marked and debuffed to take 7.5% increased damage from all sources for 10 seconds. But this can only affect one god at a time and can only occur once every 10 seconds. So this is not Zhonghui buys it, ulties, and then everybody's taking 7.5% more damage. That is not what this is happening. This is like a Gooby wraps you and ulties you, and you're taking 7.5% more damage. I still don't personally think this item is that great. I mean, 7.5% damage is nice, especially if you combined this with any of the new like map effects where they're taking increased percentage damage. That could get real crazy real quick. But in general, I feel like this is an item that would be good more on single target gods like Goobus. But I don't see a reason why you would want to play a god like that and pick this up when you could just pick like an auto attack mage and do, you know, Ring of Hecate. So it's not a horrible item. It's definitely better than it is right now. It's just different. Warrior Tabai now provides 100 mana. So to all our ability-based assassins out in the world that didn't want to buy Talaria boots because they got nerfed by 3% movement speed, but you didn't want to buy attack speed boots, congrats. You can now buy Warrior Tabai and feel confident in it again and actually be able to use those abilities that you wanted to use. Nice. I like that change. Relics. We are getting, guys, not to get you too hyped, the most important relic changes maybe since they changed how the relic system worked. Super, super important relic changes coming into the game, this change. Step 1. Teleport can now teleport to Phoenixes. This is actually a big deal. This was originally not in the game because it was so good at stopping split pushing. But now they're like, screw that. We want to stop split pushing. So your solo laner can now actually teleport to the Phoenix to stop people from split pushing. This is a very nice change to stop, you know, the Apollos and the Lokis of the world from split pushing. Speaking of Lokis, you should know the Loki rework is not going to be happening. They have not finished the Loki rework yet. In fact, the Loki rework is proving to be more difficult than they imagined it would be. It is harder for them than they thought it would in terms of all the stuff they're trying to do. So not only is the Loki rework not in this patch, but there's a good chance that it won't even be in the next patch. This could be a couple of patches delayed. So, not to ruin your day. Here we go. Cursed Ankh. Are you ready? When applied, this relic will now reduce active shields by 50%. Not only is it anti-heal, it is now a 50% zing slice right through everybody's shield that you proc it on. I'm talking Nike. I'm talking Geb. I'm talking Yamoja. I'm talking Shell. Any shield effect. I'm talking the mana ulti. Anything you can think of that applies shields, boom. Instant 50% counter. Cursed Ankh is now a super rad active that you probably want to have on your team every single game. Even if it's not there to counter healing, you're probably going to need it on your team to counter shields. Huge active. huge. Odin Shield, zing. Hera Shield, zing. Pridwin, zing, zing, zing. Speaking of killing shields, bomb, ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba, ja-ba-ba-dee-ba-ba-dee-ba-ba-dee-ba. Sundering Spear now destroys 100% of shields when applied. That's right, folks. Nike ultis, wha-bam! Immediately hit them with the Sunder, no Nike shield, and they're taking the extra damage, all the bonus stuff coming out from Sunder. The instant counteractive. Sunder and Cursed Ankh are back on the table. Peace out, shields. Get wrecked. Now, you still have to rely on your team. Step 1, to not miss Sundering Spear. Reminder, this is actually an aimed active, so don't miss. That would be embarrassing. 2, you have to actually rely on them to, hit the Sundering Spear, or, actually buy Cursed Ankh and Sundering Spear. So, you still have to actually buy the actives, but wonderful, wonderful changes. Thank the Lord, there's finally shield counters. And that is all of the item and active changes coming into the game. We've got the map changes. We've got the jungle action, the item action, the relic action. It's time for gods. And just when you thought you were actually done with items, you're actually not. Because Ratatasker's rework is actually just an Acorn rework. So he gets more items. All right, you guys ready for this? His Acorns are crazy. So, step 1. He now has 2 different trees, okay? 2 different trees that he can go up. You got the left side Acorn, you got your right side Acorn. Your left nut and your right nut. Okay? There is the tanky side of the Acorn. These are all 1900 gold, all right? 35 physical power, 20% movement speed, 15% maximum health, and when you damage a god with an ability, you heal for 7% of your health and mana. 7%. All right? I'm not telling you how to live your life, okay? I would never do that, but if I'm Ratatasker and I'm playing pretty much in any role, am I buying the Evergreen Acorn and stacking it with the new Soul Eater? Yes. Yes, I am. Absolutely, I am. Yes. Absolutely. Secondarily, you can go the thick bark Acorn if you want a nice thick Acorn. This gives 25 physical power, 20% movement speed, 15% protection, and when Ratatasker damages a god with an ability, he heals for 3% of his maximum health. Flurry has an additional charge, that's right, you can use your 2 twice, and you gain protections that you shred from enemies. So right now, Ratatasker's Flurry is a protection shred. So if you get the thick bark Acorn, you will give yourself protections that you shred from them. Yes, this stacks for every enemy god that you hit, up to a maximum of all the gods, and you can use it twice. And because you're getting bonus protections for existing, this means that not only are you getting these protections, but your protections are getting protections on their protections. With this Acorn, Rat can easily cap on protections with like 2 defense items. Easily. On the other side of the tree, you've got the aggressive Acorns. This one is the Bristle Bush Acorn, which is 2,050 gold, 45 physical power, 20% movement speed, 20% crit chance. Dart now deals 40% increased damage, and it can crit. When Dart damages an enemy, Ratatasker gains 10% physical lifesteal and 10% basic attack damage for 6 seconds. This is your basic, I want to go crit rat. I want to go super aggressive. I want to go an assassin, and I want to dive, dive, dive. So they give you a big, fat, critical nut, okay? Just in case you want to. And finally, one of my favorites, the Thistle Thorn Acorn, 2,050 gold, 45 physical power, 20% movement speed. But Acorn Blast will now shoot out 5 acorns, okay? It increases your blast size. Enemies hit by the Acorn Blast are marked to take 5% increased damage from Ratatasker's abilities, stacking up to 3 times for 5 seconds. So you can go ahead and use this. It does more damage because you have the extra acorns, and you get the increased damage on the following up abilities after that. Very, very interesting, bursty boy acorn. Yes, just like right now, you can only have 1 acorn. The only change in this patch to Ratatasker is to his Acorn Blast. Basically, because they're letting him shoot up to 5 acorns, they're changing the way it works a little bit so that they're increasing the base damage of his acorn, but they're reducing the amount of damage that it does on each subsequent acorn. So that way, it still does more damage when you like land all 5, but it's not like a one-shot on any squishy in the game. So just kind of balancing out this particular acorn. On the whole, all of the acorns are going to be good and situational. The most devastatingly annoying one probably is going to be Evergreen combined with Soul Eater. I think Evergreen combined with Soul Eater is going to just be a horrible experience. Next up, Al-Quwain getting a buff. They're basically reverting a nerf that they gave to Al-Quwain a while back. They are increasing the slow on Dragon Call back to its original 30% instead of 20, and they're reducing the cooldown on Wildstorm from 9 seconds to 7 seconds. So you're going to be able to spam that 3 again, and when you pop your 2, you're going to be able to get that extra slow. This combined with the Ring of Hecate changes, I think is going to put Quang in a really, really good spot. To be fair, he can't buy the new Serrated Blade, and that is a bummer. Apollo's getting a buff. They're increasing the protections that you get from Serenade from 10 to 30 to 15 to 35, and they're also increasing the Mesmerize duration at the start. It used to be 1.1 at the start. It is now going to be 1.5, still capping at that 2.3. Just making him a little bit more defensive. Across the sky, they're increasing the scaling on this from 30 to 40%, which means that it's actually from 120 to 160% because it procs 4 times. So Apollo Ultimate gonna gain more damage based off of power, which means our like Transcendence Apollo mid build type stuff just got even stronger. Next up, RDO getting a little buff. Increasing the damage on her energy surge. This is her 1 in her druid form from 70 to 190 to 80 to 200. They're also going to increase the heal range from 55 to 65. They're also going to up the slow on heavy charge from 10 to 30% to 20 to 30%. A little bit of a buff there for the old RTO. Help her put her in a little bit of a better spot. I actually think she's in a pretty good spot right now, though. Baba Yaga getting one of my scariest buffs of the day. They're increasing the damage on her brew in the early game. They're not increasing it in the late game. It's still 225 at the end of the game, but instead of 65 damage at the start of the game, it's going to be 85. And keep in mind that you can have Baba's brew twice. So this is actually a 40 damage bonus at level 1. Which means that you're probably gonna get Baba's Brew at level 1, and you're probably gonna rank it up to max first now. So expect some potions flying your way, and they're also increasing the shield on Home Sweet Home, increasing it up by 60 at the start. Only a 20 increase at the end, but making her even tankier at the start of the game. Baba Yaga is in a really good spot now. Like, holy cow, she just keeps getting better and better and better, and she was already good to begin with. Bakasura getting a weirdly small buff, but the fact that we're buffing him at all is very scary to me because He loves the Golden Blade changes. He loves the Serrated Blade, and they're buffing Baga. Increase the power scaling on his heal from 70% to 85% so he can heal himself more. And they're also going to increase the protections that he gets from it from 10 to 30 to 10 to 42. So Baga will be a little bit tankier. Baron getting a small buff as well, increasing the base damage on Vivid Gaze from 80 to 240 to 90 to 250. That's good. He needs that. And increasing the scaling on Wrap It Up from 5 to 8%, which means it goes from 25% total to 40% total. I don't mind those changes on Baron. Baron doesn't get played very much. He could use himself a nice little buff. Braggin. Basically just getting a quality of life change. Technically now Tremors will proc a little bit faster because now it has an initial tick of damage instead of basically where you beat the ground and nothing happens. Now you beat the ground and it actually does the damage. Cerberus getting a nice little cooldown reduction. 2 seconds on Paralyzing Spit and 2 seconds on Soul Expulsion. Might help him a little bit. Come back into the meta, but not a ton. Cooldown reduction is nice for somebody that's cooldowns are this long, but with all the other changes in the game, I don't know if he's gonna be making the cut. I think we might start to see even more warrior supports actually with some of these item changes. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Chyron getting a huge buff, increasing the base damage on training exercise from 80 to 300 to 100 to 300, plus 20 damage at level 1. Chyron can lane clear. Also increasing the scaling on Masterful Shot from 70 to 80, just a little bit of extra damage there. This is going to put Chyron in an awesome spot. He's already got a good kit. He's in an okay spot. The one thing that he sucks at is clearing the wave, and now he will be better at clearing the wave. So expect some more Chyron action coming to your games. Cthulhu got nerfed in the bonus balance, but he is also going to get a little bit of a nerf in this balance. They are not going to let him use relics anymore while he's inside his ultimate. This is a great change to Cthulhu. For those that have played against him, you understand how busted he is, and it's extra not fun when he pops a shell inside of his ulti, so we won't be able to do that anymore. Speaking of gods that would be good if they had lane clear, Cupid. Wouldn't that be crazy if Cupid had really, really good lane clear? Bum, ba-da-da-ba-ba-ba, ba-da-da-ba-ba-bum, Cupid! Hardy bomb, folks. Minions take an additional 50% damage from the initial hit and the explosion. That's right, folks. The initial hit and the explosion both are going to do an increased 50% damage. Cupid can clear the waves. He's going to be able to be played again. He'll be able to be played frequently. I love that this change is happening. Welcome back, Cupid, to the meta. Hey, why don't we buff another hunter that doesn't get played a ton right now? Medusa getting another huge buff for the hunters. If you haven't paid attention, this is the hunter patch of all time. Medusa Viper Shot now has 4 charges at all ranks. Increase the scaling from 10 to 12.5%. Tons of damage on Viper Shot. Acid Spray, increase the scaling from 70 to 80% and increase the range on the ability from 40 to 45. And Lacerate, doubling the duration of the root from 0.5 to 1 second. How about dem apples? Medusa is back. Expect to see a whole lot of Medusa coming back out again with all these changes. Especially with some of the other changes, man, to build and whatnot. She gets a bunch of attack speed from Viper Shot. I think she's a prime candidate for some of that Silver Branch Bow action. Mulan getting a slight buff as well. They are going to be increasing how fast her arrow ranks up. It takes forever to rank up grapple, so they're going to be letting that rank up faster. They're also increasing the protections by 5 that grapple gives you. And as far as the ultimate, they're going to increase the scaling of the damage on specifically the third fire, the arrow, by 10%. Okay buff for Mulan, but it's not insane. It's not going to make or break her. Neith, though, getting a huge buff. That's right. Where the Neith mains out there in the world, you're finally going to be able to play Neith again. 2 massive changes for Neith. 1, animation and travel time for backflip have been sped up by 25%. Heck yeah. So you can actually use this ability without always getting one shot right when you land. 2, Broken Weave. All enemies now see the base skin weave models. This is just for the enemy teams. But the other big buff is Unravel. Decrease the attack speed debuff from 30% to 18 to 30. Seems like a nerf. I promise it's not. The ability now steals attack speed from enemy gods. So it not only decreases their attack speed by 18%, it increases yours by 18%. This duration of the buff and debuff will now last 4 seconds at all ranks. Hitting multiple gods will also debuff all of them, but not buff you more than 1 time. How about that for a wonderful little buff, guys? How about that? Pretty nice. Nemesis, they're going to be increasing the slice and dice damage from 40 to 160 to 50 to 170. Keep in mind, slice and dice in the middle hits for 2 times damage. So this is actually a 20 damage increase on the middle section, and you should really always be hitting that middle section. Good change for Nemesis. Between all of the item changes for Nemesis, all the recent buffs, Nemesis is going to be in a lot of games, especially because you're going to start seeing people build less protections because of the changes to Pen, which means that by default, they're going to want to build more HP to get tanky instead of protections. Guess who wrecks people with HP? She's coming back hard. Oleron, increasing the damage on his overflowing divinity from 40 to 100 to 60 to 120, and increasing the damage decrease per shot from 20% to 30%. Basically, what they're doing here is increasing the amount of damage that it does initially and decreasing the amount of punishment you get for staying inside the circle for the entire time. So it should do a little bit more damage to gods most of the time and a little bit less damage to like when you use it on an objective. Set getting changes as well, increasing the duration of his passive Relentless from 5 to 6 seconds. Increasing the damage from 70 to 250 to 80 to 285 on Skewer, and increasing the scaling from 80 to 90%. So Skewer going to be doing a ton more damage regularly, but what they're doing is spawns of Set now only deal 60 to 80% of Skewer's damage. And then so basically what happens right now is when you rank up Skewer, you're ranking up Skewer's damage and you're ranking up the damage that your minions do with Skewer. They're changing that. So Skewer will rank up its own damage by itself that you cast out from Set, but you have to actually level up the spawn of Set in order to get the percent damage that the spawns of Set do increased as well. So Skewer does more damage by itself, but the spawn of Set, you have to rank that up in order to get that damage that you're right now getting just from leveling up the Skewer. It's complicated, but that's what's happening. Wu Kang getting a buff. They're increasing the percent HP where his passive triggers from 40% to 50%, so it'll trigger more easily. And they're increasing the duration of his passive self buff if he heals above 50% from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. Just trying to make it so you can actually get that buff applied on you for a longer duration. And increasing the Tiger stun from 1 to 1.4 seconds to 1.4 seconds at all ranks. This is basically Hi-Rez saying wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't rank up the Tiger form anymore. Rank up your Cudgel and then your 2, not your 3 and your Cudgel, or your Cudgel and then your 3. They're trying to basically make it so you can just use Tiger form without having to put any points into the ability. Sylvanas getting a damage buff, which is interesting. Increasing the damage on his Wisps from 10 to 30 to 14 to 38. And increasing the bleed damage on his ulti from 60 to 100 to 60 to 120. Keep in mind that these abilities tick over and over and over again. So this is actually a huge damage buff for Sylvanas, which will help him out in all roles, whether you want to play him support or solo or mid lane full damage. This is going to help you on absolutely all accounts. So get ready for some sweet, sweet Sylvanas action. We've also got Thoth, folks, getting a weird kind of change, a buff nerf. This is a very, we gotta explain this one. So this damage increase will affect all enemies, not just gods. So this also affects minions. They're increasing the scaling damage on Hieroglyphic Assault from 20 to 25%. This bonus damage will now also apply to minions. So Thoth will be doing extra damage to minions, meaning he has better wave clear in the early game. But they're adding fall off damage, which means that you will get 25% reduced damage when hitting people outside of that 55 range. So ultra long range Thoth poke damage reduction. Early game close range Thoth minion clear and player damage increased. When people are standing next to you on Thoth, you're going to hit them harder, especially minions. When people are standing super far away, you're not going to do as much damage to them. Overall, I think this is a huge buff for Thoth, and I think this is going to bring Thoth way back into the meta. Way back into the meta. I think it's going to basically fix his problems without entirely nerfing the things that he was super strong at. Ymir getting our final change of the patch, and it's a big one. Increase the damage reduction from 10% to 15% on Frostbite, and increasing the duration of Frostbite to 6 seconds. 6 seconds, guys. Frostbite. I'm talking 2 more seconds for Ymir auto attack Wally Wompin. Yeah, I am. I'm talking extra damage reduction on those players for extra long. Ymir just got a huge buff. This will really, really help Ymir. And in fact, I think this can push Ymir over the edge and make him a meta god, potentially in multiple roles. And that is the end of the mid-season patch note. That's all of the bonus balance. That's all of the mid-season patch notes all wrapped up. Bonus balance goes live in just a couple of days on this upcoming Tuesday. This mid-season patch will not go live until July 14th.